So before I discovered tarot, I discovered the runes, and I still work with the runes extensively. They are the basis of my spiritual practices and the foundation of how I interpret the world. And the runes have had a huge influence in how I read tarot. So in Norse mythology, we have the Norns, the three Norns. And many people think of them as representing the past, the present, and the future, which is true, but there's more to it than that. So, as an example, when I do my 9 card spread, the first 3 cards that we might pull represent Ud, the older of the Norns, often considered a crone. And she represents the past and everything that has been. And a really good way of understanding the 3 Norns, or the flow of time, is to consider a well. And Ud, or the past, is the water that is in the well. It's deep. And let's be honest, we can all lose ourselves in the past. Many of us, I think, spend a long time thinking about the past. It can feel heavy, it can feel dark, and we can lose ourselves or drown ourselves in Urd, in the water of the past. The middle 3 cards would represent Verdandi, the middle of the 3 Norns, often represented as a mother archetype. Now, Verdandi literally means to become or becoming. So, this idea that the present moment is endlessly creating our future. And in our analogy of the well, Verdandi represents the surface tension on the water. I mean, if you just stepped on a pond or a river, I'm presuming, like me, you'd fall straight through. So the surface tension on the water, like the present moment, is hard to grasp. And yet it's there. And this idea of becoming, the power of the present moment, however fleeting it may be. And then the last 2 cards that I might pull represent the future. And in the 3 Norns, this would represent Skuld, the younger of the 3 Norns, often considered the maiden. And she's the one that cuts the ties, cuts the cord of our life, as it were. Now, Skuld can be represented or translated into debt. And Skuld herself is perhaps the harshest of the 3 Norns. And, the future is a scary place. That's why so many of us choose to get lost in the past, because however dark and weighty it may be, there is a comfort of having known what has happened. Skuld representing into the word debt, I think I prefer the word consequences, because in the English language, debt, I think, has very negative connotations. And I don't think Skuld is necessarily negative. So I prefer the word for the future to be consequences. And the reason that the past, present, future, or Urd Verdandi Skuld spread is so important is because if you can understand your past, and if you can understand the present moment, then you can understand the consequences that are currently creating your future. And that is how I think tarot can be really helpful. As an example, if, for example, randomly picking an example, my next book, if I want to write my next book, if my past and my present shows that I have not developed a good writing habit, that I haven't perhaps been reading a lot or creating healthy habits that will allow me to write my book, then there's no way in hell that my future will show the book will be written. Whereas if my past and my present showed that I have been reading a lot about the process of writing, that I formed habits and mindsets that will allow me to write the book, then that will be clear in my future. The example I like to give when I'm teaching is that if I have drunk a bottle of wine the night before, then the consequences will be a hangover the next day. And I think that is how tarot often works. Whether it's for a client or whether it's for ourselves, we are understanding the patterns and habits of their past. We are understanding their mindset, their habits, their self-limiting beliefs, how they are best using their present moment. And we can then definitely extrapolate the most likely future. And in my well analogy, Skuld is the water vapours that is evaporating off the well. And we could make an educated guess, if we knew the area well, that whether the water vapours would stay low to the earth and become mist or dew, or whether they would rise high to land as snow on the mountains. Based on the climate, the weather, the geography, we could make an educated guess. But in weather, there's always chaos. There's no guarantees. And so we have the weight of the water that is the past, Ud, the becoming of the present moment, which is the surface tension on the water, Vedandi, and the water vapours that are evaporating off the well and represent the as yet unformed future, Skuld. But in the time flow, how we have used our past and how we are using our present will be creating both benefits and consequences for our future. And that is how we create that understanding of the flow.